Thank you, Jenny. So as you guys are all aware, we have moved into, or are moving, we don't have everybody just yet, moved over into Gusto, but we are in the process of moving all of our clients into the Gusto payroll management system. And since we only have about an hour total, there's a lot of things that I would like to cover. There's a lot of things that we could potentially cover, but I'm going to be mindful of our time and try to look at some of our major things that I would like to kind of point out. I also want to introduce you to Serena Dominguez. She's actually our Gusto representative that's been helping with get everything transitioned over. So she's been a huge help. Unfortunately, she's only going to be able to be with us for the first 30 minutes. So if there are questions that come in the last half that I can't completely answer, we'll be sure to give that information to you and get those answers shared out. So I'm going to start out by just kind of looking at, I've got a brief PowerPoint. Can everybody see my screen? Okay. So we've got, we started moving our clients over the beginning of August. I would say we have at least 50% of our clients have been transitioned 100%. The other 50% are in the process, and I would say they're a good 90 to 95% of the way completed. So by the end of the quarter, so that would be by the end of this month, we expect to have the rest of our clients transitioned. So the whole objective kind of today's presentation is just to look at some efficiencies that we believe we are going to be able to gain with the move to Gusto, some of the tools that are available to support your team, and some to help you to understand that there are still integrations. So in our own platform, we were able to integrate within our QuickBooks software to make sure that you understand that we can still integrate within our software, so we're not losing that option. And then I kind of wanted to go over some of the differences in the reporting that you're going to see. So the reports that we have typically sent out in the past from our old payroll system, they look a little different at this point. So I kind of wanted to show you what those look like, where you can get information and go from there. So like Jenny said, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to jump in. I will say I am going to be using 2 screens, so I'm going to be relying on the rest of my team here at SKC to help me interrupt me if there are questions that I don't see. So like I said, there's a ton of efficiencies with Gusto that I think that we're going to be able to realize. But a couple of the primary efficiencies that I think are going to be the most important would be we have the ability to add administrators from our client's perspective to the Gusto platform. So that means that somebody within the client can actually, so a client employee, probably the executive director or whoever is responsible for the payroll function, can actually have access to Gusto. So they can manage the whole team. They can view team information. They can set reminders for important dates. I know we always send out calendars at the beginning of the year to remind you when things are due, when do we need to have them processed by, but an administrator can actually have some of those sent to them via like an email or put on a calendar. We also have an ability to upload CSV files. So currently under our old platform, we've had most of our clients have filled out Excel files that have shown us what the hours are. We're going to continue to do that for a lot of our clients, but as we move forward and really start to learn the system more, I think that we could potentially maybe move into a little bit of a different format that's going to save us a ton of time in uploading hours. So rather than having to manually upload hours, into the system, we can actually just have a format already available, so the information that you provide to us can automatically be imported. So I think that's a really good function. We can track PTO. We've always been able to track PTO in all of our platforms, but we have a lot of clients that don't actually track PTO. So I kind of wanted to use this as an opportunity to let you know that our payroll system has that ability to track PTO, and that we can manage benefits, including if you have 401ks or other retirement plans or health insurance. We've always been able to track and monitor the amount of deductions and employer contributions, but Gusto does have some functions, if you're interested, where they can actually manage that for you as well. And I can let Serena jump in if she has any comments on that, but they are at, there's a couple of things that are at an additional cost if you want Gusto to actually do the management for you. But it's something that helps to kind of bring everything under one roof instead of having to have multiple people manage in multiple situations. Serena, do you have a comment?
Of course. So as mentioned, sorry if there's an echo. As mentioned, with our PTO policy, we were hoping to give you, in a sense, HR control as when it comes to that. And with one of our plans and up, so there's 3 tiers that are extended, but with our middle tier and up, you're able to then now have your whole employee team request PTO straight from their employee profile, which now allows you to house all those requests within the app versus however else you've been using, which I'm sure has been great so far. But this way now it's just one home. It's as quick as a button to make any edits or approve. And then we automate that when it comes payroll to pay out for the time during that pay period for you. It's a great option to have if you have those who request a little bit more often, but even our standard plans letting you track PTO, which show balances and accruals. And that way it's very transparent for your employees on where they stand and what policy they're under. Great thing about that too is it's just between the admin and the employee. They don't see who else is on that same policy, but at least they have all the information needed on how they can utilize PTO with your company.
Thank you. And like Serena was saying, not only would we be able to in the higher levels, which we'll talk about here in a minute, but in a couple of the other options that we have available, everybody's currently going into what's called the core system. And then we've had already a couple of clients move into the next level up where they can actually track time. So in other words, you can allow your employees to sign in to Gusto. I've got a slide here in a few minutes where I'll go into a little bit more detail with that. But we do have the ability then to actually track time where you can sign in and have your employees track how many hours they worked, and it integrates seamlessly into the payroll preparation system to be able to create paychecks. Another function that I absolutely love, and we've actually started to use this with a couple of clients, is the state registration and compliance. So, you know, being the payroll manager here at SKC, I am very familiar with Missouri and Kansas, but in the current environment, you know, the last year and a half especially, we've had multiple clients who had to go fully remote. We've also had clients that have had to pivot and maybe have somebody move to another state, for example, that they were going to be working remote from. I'm not familiar with a lot of the state requirements and compliance issues outside of Kansas and Missouri. So I found that very challenging to actually make sure that we got everything set up appropriately in those states outside of those 2 states. Well, Gusto has a third party that allows us to register for state accounts. So if you happen to have a remote employee working outside of Missouri or Kansas, we can get you set up. It's a flat rate, somewhere between $149 and I believe $500 is like the top level. Maybe it's $399, but regardless, that's something that's been a huge benefit to us and a huge efficiency, so that we haven't had to completely learn the whole compliance situation. So some of the things that I think will also, so they're tools, I'm calling these the tools that we can use to support our team, but I believe they're also helpful in creating efficiencies. They go hand in hand. Some of the HR tools, like Serena was saying, if you've got some things that are HR, like Serena was saying earlier, we've got 3 different plan options, the base being core. But even within the base plan, you still have some functionality available to you for HR tools, including things like we can better organize your team, so we can set up things like departments. For nonprofits, I would say maybe a department might be fundraising or programming or administrative, so we can help to start to segregate some of the hours if you have somebody that works within just one of those functions. We can upload custom documents, so you can house some of your documentation that's HR related, whether that be the PTO policy or the holidays. Those can be actually housed within Gusto, so they're more easily accessible. That also helps when we're the ones managing your payroll. If it's housed within Gusto, that makes it easy for us to grab as well, and we can help you to manage those documents. You have the ability to hire new employees. So we have multiple options of hiring new employees where, you know, historically, when a new employee has been hired in our old payroll system, we had to manually key in everything. And when something got updated, whether the employee moved or they wanted to have new withholdings, again, it would have to be the employee would have to manually complete a paper W-4 or a paper version to give us an updated piece of information. And then they would usually provide it to the executive director or somebody within the organization. And then that person would then provide it to SKC, and SKC would end up entering it into our system. So we have some efficiencies that we can gain with the hiring options. So we can still do that function. I've talked with clients where you say, you know what, we would still rather SKC manage those pieces for us, and that's absolutely fine. But for those clients who really want to find some additional efficiencies, there are abilities for the employee to actually get in and set up some of their own information, which I think is a very big convenient option for employees, especially those who are pretty tech savvy. So not only does it help us to find efficiencies, but it's a convenience option for all of us. A couple of other things that I'll be able to show you Gusto in a few minutes too, or at least a demo site. But some of the other things that I really like, what I was just mentioning, was this employee account. So each employee, if you invite them using an email address, an employee can then set up their own login to the system to be able to view their own pay stubs, to view their W-2s at the end of the year. Like I said, they can get in and manage their home address. They can change payment methods. Changing the payment method could mean either going from check to direct deposit or back to check, a paper check if needed. We also have the ability to split checks. So let's say you wanted to put some money into your savings account. You can have multiple accounts saved so that we can split it between different accounts, and you already have that option available. So it's almost like you don't see it in your checking account, out of sight, out of mind, right? So as long as it's not there, it just automatically goes with your paycheck, gets deposited into the various accounts that you choose. They have the ability to get in and change their federal withholdings. I know at the beginning of this year, we had a lot of clients who said their employees at the end of 2020, after they did their tax returns, realized, oh, I was grossly underwithheld. And so we saw a bunch of edits to W-4s come in. So to tell us that we need to have additional withholdings. We need to have more state, more federal withholding, whatever it might happen to be, so that you don't owe money at the end of the year. Well, the employee actually has the option, like I said, to get in and manage that themselves. Doesn't have to be, but I think that that's a huge selling point for me. We also have the ability to enable two-factor authentication, which just increases security. As we all know, payroll is a very sensitive, it has a lot of sensitive information. And so the two-factor authentication just helps to increase the amount of security that's available. And then you also have the ability to set up, people can donate to charities within Gusto without us having to manage that either by SKC or by the client. Another tool is there's an app called Gusto Wallet, where employees can download the app, and again, they can use that to access all of their employee information, including their pay stubs. But a couple of other things that are really nice, I think, with the Gusto Wallet is we've got some clients that have employees that might be high school age and don't actually have a checking account. So to make direct deposits, they would actually have to go open an account. So we can, Gusto has a third-party bank that they have partnered with that you can actually have a cash account, create a cash account for direct deposit. So basically they work in the same way as a checking or savings account. And you can have multiple accounts even if you would like. You also have an option if your employees find a point in time where they're having some cash flows problems, they can actually request a cash advance through the Gusto wallet. It's going to be up to either 40% of what their average paycheck is or $500, but that is actually funded by Gusto. So it provides an extra option to allow your employees to manage their cash flows without it actually impacting the organization's cash flows. So it's, like I said, it's funded 100% by Gusto, and then whatever amounts are taken out in this cash out, this pay advance, they're automatically repaid through direct deposit in the future direct deposit payments. And then the Gusto time tracking, which is available in both the complete and the concierge plan. So they're slightly higher. But like I said, within those platforms, employees can clock in and out. It's web browser friendly, so they can clock in using a computer or even web browser on your phone, or you can actually use the mobile app. And you can have the ability to then have a manager review the hours that were posted. You can make edits as needed. You can approve and then sync the hours that employees logged directly into the payroll system. And like I mentioned, I'm just going to briefly touch on this, is that with the accounting softwares, I only listed the softwares that I'm aware of that we have some clients working in, but there are a number of other platforms that Gusto does integrate with. So basically we can import all of the information out of Gusto directly into the accounting software. So just a quick overview of what the pricing is. Like I said, almost all of our clients are currently set up on the core plan. The base price is $39 a month, and this was shared out in the email that Jenny sent out initially when you were informed that we were moving. We have a $39 a month base fee plus $6 per month per person. So of course that fee will increase the more employees you have. But SKC has negotiated a discount with Gusto that we are passing on to our clients of 20% off of that full price. For the complete plan, remember the complete plan is one of the options where you can actually use time tracking. I know we have some clients that have a number of employees, and I honestly don't know how they're tracking their time currently. I just know how we receive the information. So if you're interested in potentially looking at how to track time, we can move you into the complete system. You can track time, It can save you time. I know we've got 2 clients already that are using Complete, or no, one person that's actually using it. The other one's getting ready to go in. They love it. So, and it saved them so much time because they don't have to collect the manual time cards and then manually approve and then scan and then have somebody else approve and then scan. And so it's cut down so much on the amount of time that people have had to spend. And I know that for nonprofits, time is valuable. I think it's more valuable, it seems, because we all wear more hats than what you normally would wear, I think, in a for-profit organization. But with the Complete, basically, you would get that extra PTO tracking, so you can actually request PTO time off, and you can actually do the time tracking for an extra $6 per person. And again, there's a 20% discount from that. So when you factor in the amount of time that you might have to spend doing manually time tracking, while the cost might be increasing, your time is saved tremendously. So if that's something that you might be interested in, let me know. We'd be happy to talk to you about that. Okay, so now I just want to kind of go over, I want to show you a Gusto system. Okay, so this is just a demo so that we're not actually sharing any client sensitive information. But if those of you who are in attendance, if you are set up as an administrator already in the client file, when you log in, this should be fairly similar to what you're going to see when you log in as an administrator. So a couple of things that I wanted to go over with you is, if you're set up as an administrator and you're an employee, you're going to be using likely the same email address. So how do we toggle back and forth between our logins? Up here in the upper right corner, right now I have the option to switch to accountant profile or switch company. Serena, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that if you're an employee, if you only have access to one client and you're an employee, I believe that it's going to say switch to, is it switch to employee profile?
Correct. So when you log in, you'll be able to click your name on the top right as you're exhibiting now, and you'll be able to see if you're logged in. So Gusto will automatically log you in from the last account that you were in. So if you were logged in as an admin, you'll be greeted in admin, but when you click that, you'll see switch to employee profile, and then vice versa. If you were employee, you'll be able to click switch to admin profile.
Okay, so this is where you're going to change so that you can actually see your own pay stubs versus, being able to manage your team. So right now I'm in as the admin. I'm Bob Ross today. We've got happy trees. So over here, this is going to be, like I said, your dashboard that you initially come into. It's going to show you things like in this case, we don't have the two-step authentication enabled just yet, but it will allow you to make your logins a little bit more secure by adding that if you so choose. It's also giving you a couple of options here, things that need to be done. So as an administrator, if you were using the requesting time off, it says here, for example, we have time off requests. So as an administrator, you'd be able to see, hey, I've got some employees who have requested time. I need to go in and approve that. And so you can easily click on any one of those functions and it's going to tell you who has requested time, how much time do they have available, how much have they requested, and you can choose to approve from that point.
Go ahead. Quick note. So under the things to do, as Michelle was mentioning, is that's going to be everything pertaining to running your payroll and managing your team. If you scroll up a bit, you might see something, and I've gotten asked this before, for your business on that far right. That's going to be more so compliance related. So sometimes we've had clients tell us, oh, it seems to be the same thing on things to do as well as for my business, and that could be. because we realize that this corner for your business may not be drawing your attention as it would be a tile there. But 99% of the time, things to do is managing team and running payroll, and then for your business will be compliance requirements or even updates to the industry that you're in.
Good to know. I'm learning Gusto. I'm still learning Gusto myself. So a couple of other things in order to manage your team. As an administrator, you have this option to view people and your team members. So in this case, you'd be able to drill down on the details of each individual employee. You can see what that employee's salary is set up as, what their current email address is, where they work. And like I mentioned already, one thing that we didn't have really as a function in our own platform was with the work address, we didn't really have an option. I mean, we would have had to have created a separate function, a separate address if they worked remotely 100% of the time. And so within the managing work address, you actually have the ability to, when you're setting up an employee, if the employee is 100% remote, you actually have the option that just says the employee is working remote. So I think that that's a little bit of a time saver as well. So that's really important that you talk with your payroll processor about. If you have employees that are working 100% remote, we do need to have a deeper conversation about that. So while this is supposed to be talking about looking at Gusto, that's just a general kind of payroll compliance issue that could potentially raise a couple of concerns. And so we can see here like their compensation, how they're being paid. And here we only have this employee only has one checking account they have added, but they have the option to then add another checking account. It shows what the current, these would be the pieces of information from the W-4s that historically we filled out manually and submitted to SKC, but now you can allow your employees to have the option to come in and make the edits themselves, so if they want to make any changes. SKC will likely be the one, I'm assuming for the most part, SKC will likely be the one who is processing your payroll for you, but under this payroll tab, this is where we will go to run payroll. So I want to give you a word of warning, I guess. If you are set up as a client administrator, you're going to be getting emails saying, hey, it's time to run payroll. So just understand that if you're getting an email from Gusto that says it's time to run payroll, if you weren't expecting to run payroll, that's not indicating to you that you have to go in and do something within Gusto. That's letting you know that it's time to at least provide it to SKC. So you need to provide the information. We're not expecting you to go in and process the payroll unless that's something that you choose. But again, talk to your payroll processor or me, and we can, we'll sort out how we want to move forward. Like I said, I think we have a lot of room for improvements and changes within the system. We also have the ability to pay contractors. So we were able to pay contractors within Intuit online payroll as well. But we can still continue to do that with Gusto. So any kind of 1099 recipient instead of a W-2 recipient. We can view payroll histories within the payroll section. This time tools section is you're going to have that ability to see time tools as a link, but it's going to, what you have access to is going to be different depending on what plan you're set up on. The current client that I'm in is actually on the concierge. That's the highest level, the highest plan. So they're going to have a little bit more available within this section. But you can still always do within the time off policy. You will have the option. Let me actually change real quick and I'll go to a client that's in core so that you can see what most of you won't have that option. You won't have more than one client listed, but within the time tools under core, here's where I would have the options to set up my paid time off, sick leave, holiday schedules. And it's going to tell me that if I try to go into time tracking, it's going to tell me that I can learn more, because in the core, time tracking isn't an option. We would have to at least go up to the complete option. Benefits is where we would, where we'll manage, and SKC has been inputting any client that we already were managing benefits for through payroll. That information's already been input into Gusto, and we'll continue to track and monitor that, and you can continue to provide us with updates. So this is the benefits area, is where you'll actually see what your current plans are, what you're currently enrolled in, and what's actually just being tracked within Gusto. So you might actually have some benefits, but if you're not actually tracking it through the payroll system, you won't see that there. Within the reports, this is the one where I think is probably going to be the most useful to our clients currently. So within the reports tab, now as an administrator, you're going to have access to pulling reports. We'll still provide you currently with the reports, some of the reports at least that you're accustomed to seeing. That could potentially change over time, but for now, we will provide you with reports. I'm going to show you what the current reports look like, but you can also come in and pull down reports on your own if you so choose. So some of the main reports that you're going to see on a regular basis, we're going to pull a payroll journal report, and I've got one pulled already. I'll actually show you what that PDF looks like here in a second, and the cash requirement. But you can notice that there's a ton of other reports that you could potentially pull. So if you do have Gusto tracking your time off balances, you can easily pull the balance of all of your employees by clicking on this particular tile. So like I said, the primary reports that that we're going to be sharing with you is the cash requirement report. And again, this is from that demo, so don't worry, it's not any of our client info. So the cash requirement is going to be showing at the beginning, it's going to show you how much Gusto is withholding. So one note to make that's much different than our old payroll platform is that Gusto impounds taxes at the date that payroll is paid. So historically, we have SKC has submitted all of your payroll tax returns, your payroll tax payments, but that's required us to go in and initiate all of those payments. We've had to go in and manually process payments and reports, returns on a quarterly, monthly, whatever your frequency was supposed to be. With Gusto, it's a full service platform. And so by full service, that means all we have to do is input the hours, tell them how much to pay employees, tell them how much to withhold from employees, and they basically take it from there. SKC will continue to review all of the information that is being prepared. So we'll continue to review reports and returns, and we'll make sure to get that information to you as you need. But just understand that taxes are being impounded. But that is one of the places where we're able to pick up some efficiencies, though, because we no longer have to actually initiate some of those tax payments and tax returns. So while the cost of the platform went up, I fully expect to see us be able to save some time. So then that also means that you're probably going to see a change in the hours that SKC bills you for payroll processing. Here it shows us how much in total Gusto is drawing. So the cash remitted by Gusto, this should be the total amount of the checks. to your employees, and then so the net paychecks, and then the tax liabilities that are being withheld that will be remitted to the IRS, the state of Missouri, the state of Kansas, and whatever other organizations you have. So this here, this cost, the total payroll, this is what you would normally have expected to have seen as the total cost of payroll in the previous platform. So that's the total cost, all cash flows that would be required for that one particular pay run. You'll also see in this case, we don't have any clients or any employees that have reimbursements included in their paychecks or garnishments. But if you have, say, an employee that has a child support garnishment, you would see that dollar amount here. Speaking of that, that's another efficiency that we have that I didn't mention. With garnishments, we used to also have to process those individually. And if it's a child support garnishment, Gusto automatically remits those on your behalf as well. So I know we have some clients that have child support garnishments for some of their employees, and you would have to write an extra check and mail that in, and you don't have to do that any longer. Gusto is going to do that for you. If you do have, so it's going to give you a detailed list of what the net paycheck is for each employee. And then I also wanted to show you, so we used to have separate reports that would list what your contributions are, if you have a retirement plan, what the health insurance deductions or contributions might have been. That is included in this cash requirement summary page. So there's a section as we move down further, it talks about the benefit liability, the health insurance benefit liability. So it says how much was withheld from each employee. So this first column is how much is being withheld from each employee's current paycheck. The contribution is what the employer is picking up. And then, so it's separated by the different types of insurance. So you've got medical, dental, vision. And then down here, you've got like this, in this example, we have a 401k, so a retirement plan. If the benefits are not being managed by Gusto, this part will be the amounts that we'll use to remit the payments for the 401k plans. So that's already kind of built into the one report. So instead of having to pull multiple pages, a lot of it's in one page. The payroll journal will give you the detail. So it's going to break down each individual employee, what their withholdings are. So the deductions and contributions, these are going to be your voluntary deductions and contributions. Your next column is going to be for the taxes that are withheld for that employee, the taxes that the employer is responsible for paying, and then the last column will combine both the net pay and if there happens to be any reimbursements. So that's kind of a little bit of a different location. Reimbursements used to be listed along with your earnings amounts on the old reports. They're now going to be listed with kind of with your net pay, so that we can segregate out how much salaries and wages compared to reimbursements. And since we only have about 15 minutes left, that's kind of the majority of what I wanted to touch on. I know there's lots more that I could potentially touch on, but we would need more time. So I definitely want to make sure to open it for questions, anything in particular that you would like me to show you, or questions that you might currently have.
Hi, I'm Kiara Davis, and I'm working with artist mentorship. And one of the things that we're having an issue with is if we're switching over to a new payroll system, would we be able to add in all of the previous payroll from the system we used before? And then will we be able to pay taxes on those
Yes.
as
So
well? Like, would you be able to calculate the tax as well on your system, on the new system?
absolutely. So the way the system would work, and this is what we've had to do with all of our clients that we've moved over into Gusto so far, we enter as a lump sum all of the prior year for 2021. So everything for the current year has been entered so that you're only going to get one W-2, including your total gross. All taxes would be also, any taxes that have so far been paid through the old system would also be recognized within the Gusto system, showing that they've been paid. And if there happens to be a tax, so there's some clients that we transitioned in the middle of a month, and they are supposed to report taxes on a monthly basis. So the first paycheck of the month was processed through Intuit, and the second paycheck was processed through Gusto in the month. So we just have input information into Gusto to let them know this is the amount of taxes that should have been paid for the first half of the month, and Gusto will pay the full month's worth. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you won't be able to pull, I will say this, you will not be able to pull pay stubs for each of the pay periods prior to the conversion of Gusto from Gusto, but you will be able to pull a cumulative detail. So if you want a specific pay stub, it needs to be pulled from the system that you processed that specific payroll within. And we will have access for any clients that we have been processing in Intuit Online Payroll. We will have access to all of those reports. I've been informed for 1 to 3 years was the information that they presented to us. So we're downloading as much information just to have on hand, just to be on the safe side.
Michelle, we have a question from Leah Petrie. Sorry if I'm not saying your name right, Leah. In getting set up, how do we find our employer account number for Missouri tax?
So we have all of that information, so you shouldn't have to enter that yourself. So if that's the concern, Leah, I know I have all of that information for you for KCJO. But I will pull it out of the old system.
Okay, yeah, it just keeps showing up as I keep getting emails saying I need to set it up.
Okay, so I'm guessing that that particular account that it's asking for, and Serena, can you make a note of this? I believe this is probably an unemployment where they're exempt from unemployment. So that is something that I need Gusto to actually go in and edit.
I'm working on that now for you.
Thank you.
Let's see here.
That's a good point, because nonprofits, depending on the number of employees they have active, they're not liable for unemployment tax until they've had 4 employees for at least 20 weeks in the year. So that would be the reason why it hasn't been set up yet, Leah.
So I just double checked as well. Thankfully, none of the payrolls that you had processed had any unemployment to it. So on the front end, the exemption was in there. I'm just applying it now on the back end, so it connects. So you'll see that disappear in about 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.